Okay, if the host could give me the ability to share my screen,
Is already
that will
given.
be, I think I have that maybe
Yes,
already.
yes,
Yeah, I do.
given.
Yep, that's great. Okay. Okay, so I'll just jump into my presentation here that I've prepared. I think that it's really important to talk about the consumer voice when it comes to advocating for homeopathy. And I think the most difficult part is helping the consumers get together and organize and to prepare a platform. And so what I thought I'd share with you guys is just our journey with Americans for Homeopathy Choice and how we got to where we are. And that might give you guys ideas for what works in your country and your locations. What worked in the US, it won't be what will work for you guys. But I do think some principles are there that can be taken and adapted for your country and your area. So, so I'll begin with my story. This is my family. I'm originally from Brazil, but my family, our home is in Texas, but actually I'm in Budapest right now, but our home is in Texas. And so my husband's work has us here for a few years, but I was diagnosed with a severe bladder disease called interstitial cystitis. And it was one of the worst cases. I went all over the United States seeking help. Actually, doctors at the Mayo Clinic said, which is an important clinic in the United States, they said it was one of the worst cases of interstitial cystitis they'd ever seen. I was very sick, and the options my doctors offered me were really bad. They said you can take opioids, we can cut the nerve to your bladder, or we can oh, but they said if I take opioids, I have to join a support group because for the addiction. Cut the nerve to the bladder, or boy, what was the other one? Anyways, just really bad options, not good options for me. So then I went on a journey and I found homeopathy. There's something really important about my story that I want to point out. When I meet with different members of the government in the United States, we're having a major opioid problem. We're also having a major problem with antibiotic resistance, and we're also having a problem with a growing number of autoimmune diseases that don't have good treatments for it. So when I tell my story, I'm showing that I face the very problems my entire country is facing. And it helps them realize and understand, I think, that my solution could be something others would like to have. And so when you talk to consumer advocates and they share their story, you try and tailor their story to fit the pressures the government is facing, so that that can connect to your representatives better. So the FDA came out with a policy document. It's still in draft form currently, that would treat all homeopathic medicines as illegal. And we saw that as an opportunity at Americans for Homeopathy Choice. It's interesting that the FDA was not talking to any homeopathy groups at all, ever. Well, not ever, but since they released their draft guidance, they stopped talking to homeopathy groups completely. And nobody was getting through to the FDA. However, our group was able to get into the FDA. We were able to meet with them, and we actually met with the FDA, I'd say now it's been 6 times that we've met with the FDA, either on the phone or in person. And one thing that we came to realize is that the consumer has a very powerful voice. When you haven't been able to make progress, perhaps as a homeopathy professional organization or as manufacturers, we have found in the United States that our consumers have done a very good job at having a lot more power and a lot more influence with the government and with these government entities. And so we saw the threat with the FDA as an opportunity. And so the consumer voice, our organization is mostly made up of mothers and women in the United States. That's a very powerful voice. I imagine that's a very powerful voice all over the world. And our hope and our goal was to channel the consumer voice, which happened to be, when it comes to homeopathy, especially women and mothers. What happens is when a manufacturer speaks to the government, or when a professional speaks to the government likes to say, oh, your intentions are not good because you can profit from this medicine, which you and I both know that's not true. People who practice homeopathy are wanting to help others, and manufacturers for manufacturing homeopathy are not in it to make a lot of money, at least not in the same way like big pharma is. You know, not you can't compare that. So, but when a consumer meets with the FDA and they say, hey, you're supposed to protect me, but actually what you're doing is hurting me, that disorients the FDA or the government agencies, because there they are trying to protect you and you're telling them that you're failing at it. So I think that's a really important, point to make about the consumer voice and why the consumer voice is so powerful. All the arguments, all the energy that they would put against a practitioner or against a manufacturer, those instantly disappear when a consumer takes the lead and walks into the room. And so if you think about doing a program, a path of least resistance, the consumer voice entering the room and taking the lead actually makes a lot of the anti-homeopathy arguments fall apart. What do they say to a practitioner? Homeopathy doesn't work. But the consumer says, no, it works for me. I was very sick with a terrible autoimmune disease and homeopathy worked for me. So that argument goes away. They'll say, you know, you're here because you're tricking people and you're making money. No, I'm not making any money from doing this. As president for Homeopathy Choice, I don't get paid to do this job. I mean, I get reimbursed for different expenses, but I don't get paid a salary to do this job. So no, I'm not here to make money. I'm here because it's helped my health and the health of my family. So you can see that the moment you do that, it disorients the person coming against you. And maybe it's not the government. Maybe for you guys, it's a skeptic group or something, but having the consumer in the room, it's like either they're going to call the consumer a liar or it just helps the arguments go away. So, okay, so we have the FDA's proposed draft guidance that I was talking about, where they're categorizing all of homeopathy as technically illegal. So they're using a policy document to do this. So a policy document does not have the force of law, but the same practical effect is that FDA will treat homeopathy as if it's illegal. And that allows them to remove any medicines off the shelf for any reason or for honestly no reason at all. What that means is that the FDA is actually not using their policy to help remedies go through an approval process. They're using it as an enforcement tool to just be able to pull remedies off when they feel like it, one at a time, which we're very concerned about. Something that we have found is that, you know, sometimes manufacturers might have like a combination product, and they'll say, okay, you know, if FDA gets rid of like belladonna, we'll just reformulate our product and still sell it. That's kind of, you know, how how some manufacturers would have to deal with this draft guidance. But to the consumer, we can't imagine losing even one remedy. Like, for example, belladonna. We can't imagine not having belladonna when our kid gets that high fever. So you can see that the consumers have a vested interest in keeping the full range of homeopathy, and also practitioners do too. And so I think our energy and our drive to get this resolved goes further. And so that's when we decided to organize Homeopathy Choice. And we have, oops, oh dear, that is not what I wanted to do. So we and of, let's see, over, yeah, we have over 60,000 follower, you know, part of our membership, people who are on our email list, people, you know, this is combined with comments we've gotten on the guidance document, our citizens petition. So we've organized, and really we spent a lot of time on social media and connecting with different groups that use homeopathy. And that's been a really important thing. As we identified leaders, we started finding consumers who loved homeopathy, and I started just understanding what are your skill sets. And so very quickly I was able to put someone on social media, someone to do graphics, and then we were able to do some fundraising. And as we were able to get more donations, we were able to organize and have a marketing company do a proper website and do kind of some of the hired things that we use our money for. A critical part of our work is finding an attorney who can help think through the legal matters. And actually, Kathy Lemon, who's here on the call, was very instrumental in introducing Jim Turner to us. So we're very thankful to Kathy. He's our attorney at Homeopathy Choice. And then we also have, this is very important, public relations support. Most homeopathy organizations that I meet, actually, yeah, I can only think of one homeopathy organization that has proper PR support. This is a big issue with homeopathy, and I'm going to talk to you guys about a little bit more about our PR strategy, our public relations strategy in a bit. But I find it very critical. One of the first things organizations should get is some sort of PR support and PR training to the homeopathy community, because in my experience, this is something that's really lacking within the homeopathy community. And it causes, I think, we end up creating a lot of our own problems because our homeopathy community doesn't have proper PR support. So I'm actually going to skip to that part. I'll go back to this bit in a moment. But I want to tell you guys about our PR program, because I'm just feeling like maybe this might be something you guys are very interested in. So we have, what we have done. So at Americans for Homeopathy Choice, one of the things we noticed is that there were different reporters that were coming out and writing, pieces like articles in the newspaper that were anti-homeopathy articles. And what we saw is that the reporter will usually interview both sides. They'll interview someone that supports homeopathy, and they'll interview someone that does not support homeopathy. But then when the article is put together and released, it's clearly an anti-homeopathy article. So something we've actually trained our people in the United States is to learn to identify what we call a baiting reporter and learn to not respond. Now that might seem counterintuitive. Why would we not respond to a baiting reporter about homeopathy? Well, if you think about it, I understand that newspaper articles are not free from bias. Of course, everybody has their own agenda, and especially when a skeptic writes about homeopathy, they have an agenda and they want to put homeopathy down. However, when you, however, the reporter, to look credible, to look like he's looked at both sides of the issue, he still has to put some pro-homeopathy information there, even though the general outcome is to put homeopathy down. Well, we have found that what this baiting reporter will do is they'll basically write their whole anti-homeopathy article, then they'll look for a homeopath to give them one or two quotes to show the other side and to prove them wrong. Well, what we have found is if you just don't respond to that article, what ends up happening is they can't use your words against you. And then they don't have a two-sided article anymore. And many times that article no longer gets published. In 2017, 2018, and even I think into 2019, maybe, there was several anti-homeopathy articles that were published. We put our entire homeopathy organizations in the United States through this media training program, okay? And this media training program trained everyone, do not respond to articles, do not respond to reporters, and contact your organization's media liaison. So what our PR guy did is so let's say this, in the United States, we have like all these different homeopathy organizations. So this green house represents, let's say, the National Center for Homeopathy in the United States. The blue house represents the American Institute of Homeopathy. The red house represents, let's say, the Naturopathic Association of Homeopathic Physicians. Okay, so these are each different organizations. Though each organization has identified one person who is their media liaison. Our PR guy trained all of the media liaisons on when to ignore and when to respond to a reporter. That way, everybody in the organization knows how to identify a baiting reporter. And then they teach their members how to ignore those baiting reporters. Sometimes a reporter will come that looks legitimate and the media liaison isn't sure. So then they go to our PR guy and then they ask for additional assistance. Our PR guy our PR guy was is you know, PR help is not cheap, and so each of these organizations actually donate money to help pay for the PR guy collectively, and that makes it really affordable. Okay, so that's basically our treat, and that's the PR guy gives on-call assistance to all these organizations. So I'd like to break at this point and ask if anyone has any questions. I know there's a little bit of background noise, but does anyone have any questions for me so far? Am I making sense?
No.
Maybe you continue, madam. We will have the question and answer session towards the end of your set, when you finish talking.
Okay, sounds good.
One request to all the participants joining in this forum, please come with your correct name. There are admissions we are given some other short name, GIR, TR, something. So we have requesting everyone to come with the correct name, because that will help you to identify number one, and because we have faced some hackers issues earlier. So we may not be able to continue that participant with come with a short name or unidentified names. Thank you. Sorry, you can continue, ma'am.
No, that's okay. All right, so our public relations program has been adopted by every major homeopathy organization in the United States. And instantly, as soon as we applied that program, all of our, we have not had a single article come out against homeopathy since then, which is a huge accomplishment. And so we're really thankful for you know, the organizations kind of having faith in us and working with us. Okay, so then as we've moved forward, we've kind of controlled kind of the national, we've tried to kind of minimize the national, I guess, conversation around homeopathy. And so what we've also done as Americans for Homeopathy Choices, we've connected with Congress. So we've taken our members and in 2019, and again this year, we're having a congressional briefing. And this congressional briefing is basically a opportunity for us to connect with Congress, explain our concerns about homeopathy, and you know, just help them understand that we're concerned about this issue. So so at this congressional briefing, we were able to get 150 participants. And you can see here that these participants are from all over the United States. So you have people holding up their signs that show us where their state is from, where they're from in their state. And we did have, you know, we try and make it a fun and positive event, but we were able to meet with over 200 offices about homeopathy. And what we were really surprised to find is that it was kind of a blank slate. There was not a lot of negative energy about homeopathy in Congress. And we came in at a really wonderful time to educate them and help them understand, you know, the issue. So, so yeah, so that's that. Let's see what else here. And so ahead of time, what we did is we had online trainings. You have to train your people to, you have to train them. I'll just stop sharing for a second. You have to train people to, I think there's someone that is unmuted, and I'm going to mute you because I keep hearing your computer ding and it's distracting. So I'm going to find you. I have a hard time concentrating when I hear bells ringing. So let me see. Okay.
No, it is some incoming guests are making that noise. Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. Sorry. I thought someone was just unmuted. Okay. So it's hard to, I can't think. It's having too many children my whole life. You can't concentrate because they're always distracting you. So, so ahead of time, we were able to get some training online, and, you know, people need to learn how to talk to Congress in the sense of, like, you have to dress professionally. One of the things, for example, that we coach our members on is we tell them you should not speak negatively of Big Pharma, because the person you're talking to might be on some medications that they think is helping them. So instead, we focus on talking well about homeopathy, but not speaking badly about other medicines or Big Pharma or whatever like that. I think another thing that we do is we coach them through the talking points and we help them feel comfortable talking about homeopathy. So I love this photo because all of these women in this photo were very scared to talk to Congress. They were very scared to do that. But as soon as they got the training and they went there, they felt very empowered to support homeopathy. And so during the events, you know, we had a really great time and we were very successful. And so now, so that's pretty much the end of my presentation. So now, as we are looking at 2021, we are having another Homeopathy on the Hill. We have this time bipartisan congressional support to have some sort of a bill introduced, and we're hoping we'll have it introduced in time. So